Good morning. I'm Peter Van Erp, and I serve as your worship associate for today. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. All of you, wherever you come from, whatever your background, whatever your beliefs, you are all welcome here. Today, we are blessed with two ministers. Our guest preacher today will be the Reverend Erica Barron. Reverend Barron is a congregational consultant with the New England region of the UUA, helping congregations with questions, concerns, and celebrations, large and small. She previously served as a minister to Unitarian Universalist congregations in New York and Vermont. Once again, welcome everyone.
Good morning again, dear people. This is our time of greeting. It's our opportunity to reach out to each other, to those who are sharing the pew with us, or people who are sitting the furthest corner away from us in the meeting house. Let's make sure, as always, that no one goes ungreeted, unwelcomed, that everyone knows how glad we are to be together today and always. Everyone, before we resume our seats, can we say hi to everyone who's joining us from home? Hello, good morning, everyone. Good to be with you. Good to be with you that way. Good to be together in every way we can. And can we join in the words for our chalice lighting, printed as always in our order of service? This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights the way towards harmony, justice, and hope for all. Our invocation this morning is from the writing of Sylvia Howe. Welcome on this first Sunday of the new year. Like Janus, the ancient Roman god of thresholds and gateways, shown always facing both the future and the past, we gather with part of us looking backward and part of us looking forward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherishing our joys, aware of our failures, mindful of days gone by. We gather on the cusp of this new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for some of what lies ahead, promising to make good changes, anticipating tomorrows and tomorrows. Let us celebrate life, knowing that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. In this spirit, welcome, everyone. There you are.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I call upon the newest first U members who are present to come forward and bring your new member insert with you. Douglas Buckley, Azora dos Santos Buckley, Leah Campbell, Jason De Leon, Renya Larson, Aaron Vieira, Lauren Leslie, and Ronald Villafor.
The life's blood of any congregation lies in new members. You recognize the value of church community in your lives and unite with us in the rituals, ideals, and traditions that are vital to our existence. Drawn by your own yearnings and your experiences here, you have learned the history and ways of this faith and of this church in particular. You have signed the book of membership in this faith community, whose members go back 300 years.
We welcome you into membership in the First Unitarian Church of Providence. We appreciate the love, dedication, and service you bring to us. Your presence here makes us whole and holy. May you find here both happiness and wisdom for daily living.
We honor the paths that have brought you here. We look forward to the journey we will share with you in the coming years. Therefore, new members, will you affirm your joining this congregation and commit to cherishing the freedom of this liberal faith, in which you may work out your own beliefs in an atmosphere of trust and challenge? Will you accept the responsibilities of membership and participation as we commit to support you in loving community?
Let us all recite the words of our covenant. We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice.
And therefore, welcome to this beloved community. May you find a lasting spiritual home here among these wonderful people. May you find the comfort and challenge, the inspiration and support to help you be the persons you would be. And from this spiritual home, may you be nurtured and challenged to truly bless the world. Okay, thank you. I don't know if everybody knows that we had to add we used to have 3 new member sessions a year, and we've had to add a 4th and have at least 4 because things are going so great and so many wonderful people are coming to be part of this congregation. Yeah, it is wonderful. It is wonderful. Our first hymn is All Beautiful, the March of Days, number 57 in the gray hymnal. Can we rise in body or spirit and sing out together?
Our reading this morning is from Nothing Personal by the 20th century American author James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. We will now hear the joys and sorrows of people in our congregation as written in the book in the back of the meeting house. Our partner church in Transylvania has gifted us with a beautiful candlestick for the large candle from which we light our individual candles of joy or sorrow. From Jill Mallon, a candle for my mom, Margaret Mary, who has entered hospice with late-stage dementia. From all of us, 2 candles for those dear to our community. A candle for Reverend Liz. We love you and are wishing you care and support in this sad time. And a candle of healing for Reverend Roger, who would normally be reading this today. Hope for a speedy recovery. From Rachel Snaywind, a candle of sorrow for my father, Jerry, who died a year ago. from Welma. A candle for my family, who recently lost 2 family members, and for my cousin, who recently had a stroke. From Lisa Votis, a candle of sorrow for the loss of my mother, Rosemary Schumann, on December 21st. She was a dedicated UU and a brilliant and kind person. And also, a candle of joy that Lorna Steele of our animal ministry helped rehome her cat. From Janet Braylove, son in full remission and healthy, back to regular life for both of us. Amen. From Brett, for all who are gone, but whose voices still sound in my head. And from Katie Killalea, joy for baby Archie on his baptism today in Philadelphia. Friends, let us rest in gladness that we have one another to share in our joys and sorrows.
Our meditation this morning is by the Unitarian Universalist Greta Crosby. We follow it, as always, with a time of silence for personal reflection and prayer. And during that time of silence, if you have lost someone close to you in the past year, we invite you to stand or raise your hand in silent witness of that loss. And then we close that time with music. Let us not wish away the winter. It is a season to itself, not simply the way to spring. When trees rest, growing no leaves, gathering no light, they let in sky and trace themselves delicately against dawns and sunsets. The clarity and brilliance of the winter sky delight. The loom of fog softens edges, lulls the eyes and the ears of quiet. Awakens by risk the unquiet. A low, dark sky can snow, emblem of individuality, liberality, and aggregate power. Snow invites to contemplation as well as sport. Winter is a table set with ice and starlight. Winter dark tends to warm light, fire and candle. Winter cold to hugs and huddles. Winter want to gifts and sharing. Winter danger to visions, plans, and common endeavors, and the zest of narrow escapes. Winter tedium to merrymaking. Let us therefore praise winter, rich in beauty, challenge, and pregnant negativities.
It's so great to be with you this morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. Long before I was born, in 1981, my parents had both left their childhood religious communities, Catholicism for my dad and Protestantism for my mom. And they had gotten along fine without religion, but as new parents, they felt drawn back to the experience of a community of shared values, who would help them teach those values to me and to my sister, who came along 3 years later. However, neither of them believed in God, and they didn't want to raise us with the kind of religiosity from their own childhoods. So they found their way to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. And they were not the only ones. In fact, this was such a common story in the 1980s that the joke became that Unitarian Universalists are atheists with children. The congregation that I grew up in shared the many characteristics that were common to many, many Unitarian Universalist congregations in New England at the time. For starters, there were tons of kids. In my congregation, we had RE, religious education, at the same time as the adult worship service every Sunday. We had enough kids to have a separate classroom for every grade, just like school. And there was an established progression of curricula through the grades. I don't remember all of them, but I know that 4th grade was the Bible, 5th grade was holidays and holy days, where we studied holidays from different religious traditions, and 6th grade was UU history, which ended with a trip to Boston to see all the sights. It was great. There were also lots of committees. I was less aware of this as a child, but I know now that there was a vast team of volunteers that our congregations relied on to do all the things. Teach RE, host social hour, greet people as they entered worship, sing in the choir, make decisions about things like money and policy and vision, arrange circle suppers, maintain the building, plan actions of social witness, and that's not all of them. It went on and on. By the way, we still rely on that vast team of volunteers in Unitarian Universalist congregations now. When I was a very young child, these volunteers were mostly women who did not work outside the home, mostly mothers. And the Unitarian Universalist congregational life of my childhood had a stable, predictable pattern. Every year, the 6th graders learned about UU history. Every spring, the Jewish members in the congregation hosted a giant Passover Seder for the whole community. Every December, all the kids in RE participated in the earlier of 2 Christmas Eve services. We even sang the same 2 songs in that service every single year. I still remember them. The congregation was also a significant institution in the city. Visitors to Burlington, Vermont will almost certainly visit the Church Street Marketplace at some point. It's the commercial and cultural center of the city, a pedestrian mall for 4 or 5 blocks where there's no car traffic, lots of little shops. It's great. It's named for the very prominent big white church with the classical steeple at the top of the hill, which is, of course, the Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington. Here in New England, it is very common for the church at the center of town to be a Unitarian Universalist congregation. And in the 1980s, that was more than just a symbolic placement. Congregations of many denominations held positions of authority not only for their own members, but in their larger communities as well. Life was good for UU congregations in the 1980s and early 1990s. We had tons of people, lots of energy, kids and parents aplenty, and on top of all of that, cultural cachet. The prosperous white middle-class families of that time were able to donate enough money to our congregations that we could have teams of full-time staff members, well-maintained buildings, and well-financed programs. What a glorious time. you may have noticed that we're not in the 1980s anymore. I'm curious, how many of you were alive in the 1980s? Yes, okay, so you know firsthand that we are not in the 1980s anymore. Those of you born more recently, you have also experienced change, radical change in your lifetime, because the pace of change in our society just gets faster and faster. Now, we could spend an hour naming all the ways the world in 2025 is different from the world in 1985. I mean, we could probably spend an hour just listing all the tech devices that have come and gone in that 40 years. And all of those changes have affected congregations, but I want to talk about a few changes that have had the greatest impact on congregational life since I was a kid. Let's start with that vast team of volunteers that does all the work of the congregation that the staff can't do because they're, only a certain number of people. So, like I said, when I was a very young child, that was mostly mothers who did not work outside the home. And when I was preparing to talk to you today, I thought about this because my own mother always worked outside the home. But I went back in my head through all of my childhood friends and realized that that was only true for about half of us. The other half had a parent who stayed at home. So that's who used to do those jobs. And also, let me just say here that it is certainly possible for there to be families that have 2 moms and no dads, or 2 dads and no moms, or more parents, or other configurations of parents, but I didn't know any of those in my childhood. So, when I talk to congregations now in 2025, the overwhelming majority of our volunteers are retirees. And that shift happened so gradually that it's only clear how big a change it is when we look backward. The structure of committees that Unitarian Universalist congregations have inherited from actually a lot longer ago than the 1980s was created in a context that assumed that most households had a person who didn't work outside the home, assumed that that person should be spending a significant amount of her time volunteering, and thought of the church, really any church, as an ideal institution to receive and organize that volunteer labor. That is not the world any of us live in anymore. Over time, a larger and larger percentage of women work outside the home, and this is both because of a desire to do certain kinds of work, and also because of financial necessity. So working age adults, on average, have fewer hours to give. At the same time, as life expectancy has increased, especially for white middle class and upper class people, the amount of time that people are retired and able to volunteer has gotten bigger. Meanwhile, in that same period of time, Americans across the religious spectrum and the political spectrum have gotten less and less invested in religious communities. A decade or so, there was all this talk about the nuns. That's N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S. So these are people who reply to the question about religion on the US Census by saying they have none. They have no religion. And that percentage just keeps going up. This also means that the central place that white Protestant churches have held in American communities has greatly diminished. The fact that some of the more harmful aspects of religious life have become very public in that same period of time has also contributed to this. And both sides of this trend have a significant impact on congregations. So, it used to be assumed that Sunday morning was for church, so other activities were unlikely to be scheduled then. That's no longer true. Sports practice and games, in particular, have moved into the Sunday morning time slot. But also, more businesses are open on Sundays, which means more people are working on Sunday mornings, while other people have more options for how to spend that time. It used to be assumed that the church was one of the best places to give your volunteer time, And as the church has lost some of its cultural standing, it has become only one of many places to volunteer, and for a lot of people, not the top of that list. So we are now competing with other things, both for the time that we typically gather and for the time and skills of our members in a way that we didn't have to when our current congregational model was created. The trends that I've talked about so far have been centered in the experiences of white, middle, and upper-class communities and families because in the 1980s, these families made up the vast majority of members of Unitarian Universalist congregations. There's a whole other sermon about why that is, but just go with me. That was true. But since the mid-1990s, Unitarian Universalism has engaged a series of efforts to understand and address the racism within our congregations and to become more inclusive and welcoming to Black, Indigenous, people of color, and lots of others. To a lesser extent, we have also worked to address the classism in our congregations and be more welcoming to working class folks. I am very grateful that in 2025, most of our congregations are far more diverse than they were in 1985, and that our work to be inclusive, welcoming, and accountable communities continues to deepen over time. It also means that we can't assume the sort of homogeneity of income and experience in our members that we could in the 1980s. Sometimes we still do assume that, but it's not actually true anymore. All right, meanwhile, today's working adults face harder financial conditions than did previous generations. The best piece I found on this was in 2019, Bloomberg did a report on the differences between millennials, as we were entering our 40s, compared to baby boomers in their 40s, by comparing things like income, debt, savings, home ownership, etc., between 40-year-olds in 1989 and 40-year-olds in 2019. It's a fascinating comparison, and unfortunately, a disheartening one. Interestingly, the average inflation-adjusted income was about the same for both groups, but the average debt load is vastly different. So in 1989, the average debt for 40-year-olds was slightly under their average annual income. In 2019, the average debt of 40-year-olds was 175% of their annual income. Or in other words, average people had 1 3/4 times as much debt as they made in a year. The two biggest drivers of that massive increase in debt are student loans and the cost of housing. And as you might expect from having to service all that debt, 40-year-olds in 2019 also have significantly less savings than 40-year-olds in 1989. All right, I'm going to do a couple of more statistics. Bear with me. I know they can be boring, but they're important. There's interesting things buried in them. So, other studies show that 1/4 of millennials who are working have at least 2 jobs. 73% of millennials work more than 40 hours a week, and 1/4 average more than 50 hours a week. Paid days off and vacations have been trending down in the United States since the 1990s, and that trend continues. Among other things, that trend is driven by the rise of the gig economy. So this whole sectors of our economy where there are no paid vacations or sick days or any kind of leave. So not only are more women working outside the home, all working adults are working more hours than we used to. All right, one more thing that has changed. Lots more things have changed, but that we're going to talk about. The way that we parent children has changed in that 40 years. The dominant style of parenting in 2025 has been labeled intensive parenting, and it came about through a combination of a few different factors. First is the economic anxiety from not being able to assume that your kids will be among those who make it, because the generation raised in the 1980s is the first generation in American history that has an even chance of doing worse economically than their parents as better. All previous generations, children on average did better than their parents. Not anymore. We can't assume it. And so now there's this anxiety of like, I have to make sure my kid is one of the ones that makes it. Meanwhile, we had a series of safety freakouts in the 1990s. You may remember stranger danger, right? That led to a sense that children needed to be much more carefully supervised. So, gone are the days of all the kids in the neighborhood playing outside with no supervision until dark. Now, the rate of child abduction is actually very low and always has been, but there are new dangers in the world in 2025 that were not there in 1985, mostly because of the internet. Yay. Which means that there are actually whole fields of life that do need closer supervision than we did previously. Starting in the 1990s, our scientific understanding of how brains work, and especially of early childhood brain development, taught us that we are not actually born with a fixed degree of intelligence, ability, or skill. Rather, the environment and caretaking context have a dramatic impact on childhood brain development, especially in the first 3 years of life. So, you put that economic anxiety, that safety anxiety, and that, oh, we can do something to make our kids smarter, all together, and you get intensive parenting. A style in which parents are constantly interacting with their children in a teaching or guiding or modeling capacity. So, for example, by the time my son, who just turned 9, was born, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that children never watch TV alone. We're supposed to watch it with them so that you can pause and talk about it and also make sure that you know what they're watching and all the things. Walking your kid in the stroller now means pointing out things like the changing leaves, or what plants grow where, or why the weather is the way it is today, or what the features of our city are. This style is actually a step up in intensity from helicopter parenting. Let me say that again. This is a step up in intensity from helicopter parenting. Because helicopter parenting was about preventing the world from getting in to harm your kid, right? You're sort of standing in between your kid and the world, looking out at the world, being like, stay out there. Whereas intensive parenting is a constant mediation, world and kid, right? And teaching them about each other. So for example, let's imagine that a kid got a D on a test in school, right? The stereotypical helicopter parenting response to this is to go to complain to the teacher. How dare you give my child a D, right? You must not be teaching them well enough. It's all your fault, and I can't believe it. The intensive parenting, stereotypical intensive parenting response to a kid getting a D on a test is, you go to the teacher, you ask what went wrong, what does my kid need to do better, how can we make a plan to improve their grade? Then you go home, you talk to the kid about this plan, you make a plan together. But meanwhile, you also have to communicate that it's not bad to get a D on a test every once in a while, and that they can always learn better and do better because they're always growing and learning. Can you see how much more energy that takes? So, just to give you a sense of the scale of this shift, in 2024, mothers spent an average of 40% more time directly parenting their children than did mothers in 1985, while fathers spent an average of 154% more time directly parenting their children than fathers did in 1985. That gives you a little hint about how much more mothers were doing than fathers in 1985. Or to say it another way, working parents spend more time directly parenting their children in 2025 than stay-at-home parents did in the 1970s. Now, this style of parenting is obviously more attainable for parents with higher incomes, but people across cultural backgrounds and economic classes identify this as the ideal way to parent in our current moment. But it is hard. Oh my goodness, it's so hard. In fact, parenting has become so stressful that the Surgeon General of the United States issued an advisory about parenting and stress and mental health in 2024. Advisories are the sort of things that we do to talk about, like, the effects of smoking, for example, right? Or not exercising, right? Okay. Now, those factors were all in place. I'm describing the world before the ultimate stressor for parents of young kids, known as the COVID-19 pandemic. When schools closed, parents working from home spent over a year attempting to simultaneously work full-time while also supervising their children's education to the standard of intensity of intensive parenting. Meanwhile, parents in frontline or essential jobs faced the challenge of not exposing their kids to the virus, sometimes trying to quarantine in different rooms at the same house. Now, we don't live in those conditions anymore, thank goodness. But it's not like all those parents got a break, right? We came out of a year and a half of that into all the stuff we were just talking about, right? Okay. So in case you haven't put this together by now, families are struggling. Most people currently raising kids are overwhelmed, exhausted, and worried about the future, which means that they find it harder and harder to get to worship and religious education on Sunday mornings. Surprise. But it also means that they desperately need the care of a loving community. So, most of the congregational leaders I talk to across congregations in New England these days report some very common challenges. There aren't enough kids, there aren't enough volunteers, and there isn't enough money. And the reasons why so many congregations are having those same challenges are because of these changes in the context around us. Or to say it more simply, the way our congregations run was built for a different time, and we don't live in that world anymore. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? For starters, I want you to know that you are doing great. You have multiple, very talented full-time staff members. You have a skilled and dedicated bunch of volunteers. You have a thriving program for children and families. You have the resources you need to carry out your work in the world. You just added 8 new members, and you have to have 4 new member gatherings a year to bring in all the people who want to join you. It's amazing. You are already doing excellent ministry in so many different ways, and you are committed to deepening your positive impact within the congregation and in your city through your strategic plan. So, congratulations, you're awesome. And also, I'm guessing that maybe some pieces of this do feel difficult sometimes. Like, it might be harder to find volunteers for key positions. Maybe you've held the same position for a really long time, and you're looking for someone to hand it off to, and there is no one there. This is a very common story right now in congregations. Or, while you have a thriving RE program, it might be smaller than you remember from years past. Maybe you are a parent with kids, and it can feel like a monumental task to get to church on Sunday morning. If any of this lands true for you, I want you to know that you're right. It is difficult, but it's not you, and you're not alone. These things are harder because structures have changed and the context has changed. So remember this: if you start feeling like you must be missing something, or the congregation must be missing something, you're not. You're just in a different world. I also want you to remember this if you feel tempted to blame other people for some of these challenges, right? This can easily happen. Maybe you have found yourself thinking, well, if only parents today would step up to volunteer like parents in my time did, we'd be fine. We'd have all the volunteers we need. Or, other people aren't as committed to the congregation as they should be, or as I am, and if they were, all would be well. It's natural to have these thoughts, but when you do, I invite you to notice them and try to reframe them. People aren't volunteering like they used to because time pressure is greater than it used to be. Other people appear less committed because they can't give as much time or money, but actually the time and money they are able to give comes from a deep commitment in challenging times. Or, any time any family comes to church is a massive win. For them and for you, because you are important enough for the effort that takes. So I invite you to keep thinking. We are all in this together, and we are all doing the best we can. It's clear to people like me who watch congregations from a bird's eye view that the way we do church is changing. It's funny to say that in here because I'm actually at a bird's eye view of the congregation. But there's this metaphor for the leadership of a congregation which says you should get on the balcony so that you can see the patterns of the whole organization. And I feel like regional staff are in the airplane because we can see the whole region at once and notice the patterns. So, way up there, it's clear that the way we do church is changing, but it's not clear what it's changing into. I mean, we have some hunches, but it's very vague at the moment. One of the hunches that we have is that we have to get really specific about what the actual people that we are actually ministering to actually want and need, right? So the assumption that we can just guess what any city or community or family or person needs isn't working. We have to actually ask, and we have to actually listen to each other. And you all did a fantastic job of this in the day-long process you had. I was trying to remember how long ago this was. It's almost 2 years. Yeah, it doesn't feel that long ago to me. Maybe it does to you. Anyway, you had this day-long process to create your new strategic plan, and it was awesome. I got to listen to some of those conversations and help organize what emerged, and it was so cool because you found the things that you collectively care about, and you helped each other prioritize them, and you did that by listening to each other and engaging with each other. Now, that strategic plan is still in place, and I know that lots of work is being done to implement it. And that gives you a great foundation to build on when it comes to figuring out where we go from here. And now, you can continue to do that work of listening to each other, maybe in smaller groups or smaller ways, as you continue to serve each other and the wider community. So, for example, if ministry to parents and families is an important priority, periodically ask the parents you know what they need. This is a different question from what you want Sunday morning to look like. What do you need? How can we make your life easier? What would be supportive to you? Ask the families who are already in the congregation. Families in the congregation ask each other. Also, ask families who aren't yet a part of the congregation. I have so many congregations asking me right now, how do we get more families to be involved? And I say, have you asked your families what they need? Well, no. Okay. When you're doing social justice work, keep asking your community partners about how you can best support the values that you all care about. And keep asking each other what work, what ministry, what activity feels exciting, and what support you need to participate fully. Asking these kinds of questions can point you toward the ways of doing ministry that will be most meaningful in this time and place. And there's another phenomenon that if you haven't encountered it yet, you are definitely going to, which is, let's say you ask everybody in the congregation, what would really be supportive to your spirit in this time? And everybody says, or not everybody, but a lot of people say, I really want this kind of program. And you're like, awesome. And you build that program, and nobody comes. Or at least not as many people as you had hoped. Okay. I am hearing versions of this story all over the place lately. And I know that it is incredibly discouraging for those who are offering the programs. But I want you to think about it with me this way. So, we all know that there are some kinds of information about people that we can learn by directly asking them. So, for example, what is your email address? What is your phone number? Where do you live? And we also know that there is some information that people generally cannot accurately self-report. How much time do you spend on social media a week? What exactly did you eat yesterday? And I think that recently, certainly since 2020, probably a bit before that, our availability and energy to do the things we are interested in has moved from a thing we can accurately self-report to a thing we cannot accurately self-report. And I do this myself, right? I sign up for webinars or courses or plan to attend events. and then I don't actually follow through. This is common enough that most organizations that offer webinars have started on the registration form. There's a box you can click that says, I'm not coming, but I'd like the recording, right? So I do that a lot. I maybe watch a third of those recordings, right? So when you are asking people about what they would find supportive or helpful or meaningful, you are going to get more expressions of interest in any given thing than people will actually have the energy and availability to do the thing. So keep that in mind, build it into your planning, and also the absolute easier you can make it to participate, the better. Some of the ways to do that: feed people, right? Any meal that somebody doesn't have to cook, that is time that they can now give to you. Do things with your kids at the same time as you're asking adults to show up. Lots of congregations have figured out that we need to provide childcare, but think about that intensive parenting model for a minute, right? Just having someone in a room with your kids playing is not going to work for those families all the time, right? So actual programming at the same time for children and adults is more likely to work. So in early December, a colleague at the UUA and I offered a webinar on that Surgeon General's advisory about parenting. We interviewed a bunch of UUA staff who are currently raising children in preparation, and one of them talked about how she just wanted a place that she could go where her kid could play with other kids and she could fold the laundry while talking to somebody. That's all, right? She's like, we can check stuff off our to-do list, our kids can play with each other, and if there happened to be a station set up where we could write postcards to elected officials, that would be even better, right? To my surprise, this was the most popular idea in this conversation, in the interviewing the parents and later in the webinar. So many people were like, oh my goodness, yes, please give me that. I was really surprised. And it's a good reminder of two things. One, keep asking. I am a parent raising a 9-year-old, and I was surprised that this idea had so much traction, although it's strangely attractive to me too, so I can see it. And then the other thing about this that I think is so interesting is that the thing that people wanted most in this webinar, the thing that parents currently raising children wanted the most, is not a formal program, right? Think about how little effort this actually takes, right? I want a space where I can be with other people, check some things off my to-do list, and our kids can play together. You basically need someone to open the building, and you need a space that is safe and fun for children. That's it, right? And we often get into these huge dreams of we need the program that has all the things, all the bells and whistles. And sometimes all we need is to give people a way to be together in meaningful ways, right? Sometimes the best ministry we can offer is beautifully and wonderfully simple. So with all the changes in the world around us, there are a few things, of course, that have remained the same. People still need loving and supportive communities. We always will. And we always need ways to find and create meaning and hope. We need other people who value love, justice, equity, and pluralism, who practice generosity and interdependence, and are committed to transformation of ourselves and the world around us. And as a congregation, you provide all of these things. And I am confident that you will continue to find new ways to minister to each other and to your city, no matter what changes come our way. May it be so. Our next hymn is number 1028. It is in the teal-colored hymnal. It is called The Fire of Commitment. Please rise in body or spirit to sing together.
Free from fear.
What a joy to sing that song together. It's always one of my favorites. So you have heard what we have before us, what we have around us, and how important it is that we remain relevant and evolving to meet the needs of our time. There's nothing I heard Reverend Erica say that gives me despair. There is a great deal in what she said that makes me think in new ways about how to still be the First Unitarian Church of Providence in ways that meet the needs of all of us, of all ages, and make sure this church remains an important place, a powerful place, an important partner and agent for goodness in the city, in our state, in our own lives, for each other. This is what you give to when you donate to our offering every week. The challenge, the opportunities, the blessings of this congregation. Please give as generously as you are able to the life and the work, the ongoing, evolving life and work of this beloved historic community. And thank you so much, always, for all that you give, and all that you do, and all that you are. And speaking of the many changing as well as enduring ways to practice our faith, these are the invitations we have for you this week. First, the Spiritual Pathways, our religious education program, is hosting a parent breakfast next Sunday, January 12th. Look at us, totally getting it right. Parent breakfast, food, parents, It's so handy that Reverend Erica's here so that she can report back how totally on it we are. We're hosting a parent breakfast next Sunday, January 12th at 9:15 in the Parish House parlors. This is a great opportunity to meet other parents and to hear from veteran parents who raised their kids here at First U. Parents will talk about, God, we're totally nailing this, what the church community means to them and their kids, and how UU values help them navigate the ups and downs of parenting. Are you going to take this back? Like, how totally on it we are with it? RSVP by Friday the 10th through the link in the newsletter, or you can call the office to let us know you are coming. Did everybody get that? They said, can we get a recording? Of course. I have no idea. I mean, we're still evolving. Art in the Atrium is proud to announce a retrospective exhibition of the works of Willoughby Elliott. The opening reception is this Thursday, January 9th, from 5:30 to 7. And there's going to be food there too, is there not? Yes, there's always food at these. All are welcome. The artist's wife, Lisa Elliott, curated the show and will be at the opening. Come see this amazing show of paintings and prints, all of which will be for sale. And it is a new year, and it is not too early to plan for the second annual First U Fellowship Weekend. There will be food. Yes, Rick. There will be food throughout the weekend, needless to say. Please plan to come May 23rd to 25th, which is Memorial Day weekend. So we'll do what we did last time. We'll start it on Friday evening. We'll run it through Sunday afternoon, which still gives you one day to come back home and recoup for those fortunate enough to get holidays still. Plan to come that weekend for a time of fun and connection. We will have space to feed and house 130 people. Registration is available today, starting today, in the atrium after worship. And is it Paul who's going to be? I can't even see who that is. Oh, it's Kelly and Rick, Rick, stand up too. So those are the folks to look for in the atrium if you want to get more information or to go ahead and reserve your place. We sold out eventually last year, and that was the first year we did it when people didn't know how incredibly awesome it was. So I do think it's possible we will sell out much earlier this year. Please go ahead and make your reservations right away. Our benediction is from Michelle Collins, who wrote, "Changes abound around us, within us, between us. In our communities, our neighborhoods, and our beloved faith communities, changes abound. May we each find the balance point we need as we move through our ever-changing world, the balance between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown, between the familiar and the perhaps bold and risky possibilities that may be there waiting for us." Can we join in the words for extinguishing our chalice, printed in the order of service? We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.